Hi everyone, welcome back to the Montana Real Estate Channel, brought to you by Siphers Family Real Estate. I'm Craig Siphers, and today we're diving into a topic that's on the minds of many Montana homeowners, investors, and communities, and that's short-term rentals. Now, the title of our video says it all. No more short-term rentals in Montana? We'll cover what short-term rentals are, who uses them, why they're popular, and most importantly, what the law in Montana says, including a recent decision by the Montana Supreme Court. So, let's get started. First, what do we mean when we say short-term rental, or STR? In real estate speak, this generally refers to a residential property that's either part or a whole that's rented out for a relatively short period of time. Now, think nightly stays, weekend stays, vacation rentals, rather than your traditional long-term leases, say of 6 or 12 months. Platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, and other vacation rental services make this kind of use far easier for homeowners or investors. And in short, you have a home, it could be a condo, a guest unit, something like that, and you open it up for guests for short-term stays. Maybe one night, maybe a few days. That's the difference from traditional leasing. Who's doing it? Who does it benefit? You got two broad groups. First of all, you got the investors and portfolio owners. Now, those are folks who purchase properties with the explicit purposes of using them as short-term rentals. So they'll buy up and maybe manage a multiple group of rentals, units, list them on Airbnb, Vrbo. They do the check-in, check-out of the guests. They handle the housekeeping, the turnover. And the appeal is that potentially you have higher nightly rates than long-term leases could get, especially in high tourism areas or resort towns, like, for example, Whitefish, Red Lodge, Polson, Bigford. Then you also have your homeowners or occasional users. And a homeowner might live in a property and rent it out when they're away, or use a portion of their residence, like a basement, guest house, etc., for short-term rental income. In fact, I had a duplex that might fall into the side of the investor portfolio. It was a rental property, but I also had it available for clients of mine who are waiting to move into homes that they closed on and they weren't ready, or that they hadn't closed on yet. My wife and I also would rent out our home, primary residence, and stay in our motorhome in the back of our property, and we got a pretty good weekly rental rate out of it, so it made sense for us, or if we were going to be out of town. In vacation towns, Montana resorts, lakeside, mountain access, like I mentioned earlier, this can help offset your mortgage or maintenance. Why do both of these groups like short-term rentals? Well, so here are some of the reasons. It's flexibility. The owner may still use the property themselves. You've got the income potential, and like in a popular area, the nightly rates may really add up, and you have market demand. You got people who want unique places, cabins, not just a hotel room, especially here in Montana. Or, of course, there are trade-offs. You've got more management, you got turnover, you got guest services, maintenance, wear and tear, and sometimes neighborhood friction like noise and traffic. So why do investors and homeowners like short-term rentals? Well, let's drill in a little deeper on why. Why do investors and sometimes homeowners pursue these short-term rentals? Here are a few major advantages. First of all, you get a higher revenue potential because you charge per night. And in peak season, prices surge. The gross income may exceed what you get from a long-term lease for sure. We definitely had that case when the Paramount television series Yellowstone was going on in the Bitterroot Valley. A lot of homeowners would exit their homes for 3-4 months, or had rental agreements with the folks at Yellowstone for that short period, and they got top dollar, as you can imagine. The other is seasonality leverage. In Montana, with higher tourist seasons, whether it's skiing, summer on the lake, national park access. You can capture premium rates in those windows. You also have the owner usage. So for homeowners, you might live in the property part of the year and rent it out other times. So you get utility and income. And then you also have asset diversification. Some investors like the property as both investment and personal use, vacation home and income. And on the flip side, more active management, you have higher maintenance, variable occupancy lots of times, regulatory risk, which we'll get into in a little bit, and neighborhood community pushback. It isn't automatically easy money. Now to the heart of the matter. The legal environment in Montana for short-term rentals. There have been important decisions by the Montana Supreme Court that clarify when short-term rentals are allowed or not under subdivision restrictive covenants or homeowners association rules. Now, here are two key cases. In Brandt versus R&R Mountain Escapes LLC in 2025, the court held that in a subdivision near Whitefish, the restrictive covenants, when read as a whole, clearly prohibited short-term rentals because the declaration required country residential living and prohibited by any commercial business or trade. So the court affirmed that short-term rentals constituted commercial use and were barred. The other case was Myers versus Kleinhans, and that was a 2024 case where the court reversed a lower court ruling and found that the covenant language that said no commercial business trade of any sort was unambiguous. That's the homeowner's Airbnb operation violated the covenant. So the important nuance earlier in Craig's Tracks versus Brown Drake, and that had nothing to do with me, which was in 2020, the court found that a covenant simply limiting use to residential purposes only was ambiguous and did not automatically preclude short-term rentals. So it's not a blanket statewide ban by statute. Rather, when subdivision or HOA covenants clearly prohibit commercial use, the court says, yes, short-term rentals can be barred under those covenants. So are short-term rentals banned in Montana? Well, what that means for you is that in light of the above, the takeaway is that short-term rentals are not banned in Montana. Not universally, and yes, in many circumstances, depending on covenants, local zoning, and HOA rules. Now, here's what you should know. If you own property in a subdivision governed by covenants that say no commercial business or similar language, you may be prohibited from operating a short-term rental. If the covenant only says residential use only, but doesn't ban commercial use or define residential in any way that excludes short-term rentals, there may be room to argue for short-term rental use, though it's not guaranteed. Now, if the covenants permit short-term rentals, local city or county zoning ordinance also may apply. So always check both the HOA subdivision documents and the municipal regional rules. For investors or homeowners considering short-term rentals, do due diligence check. Review the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So those are the CC&Rs, the HOA rules, local zoning, permitting and licensing for vacation rentals, and potential neighborhood community impacts. Best practice, consult an attorney experienced in Montana real estate covenants if you're uncertain whether your subdivision allows STRs under their governing documents. So here's some practical advice and steps. If you're watching and considering short-term rental, either as a homeowner or an investor in Montana, you'll want to review those CC&Rs. Does the subdivision declaration ban commercial business or trade? Does it define residential use? Number 2, check local zoning ordinance. Some towns, cities, and counties have specific vacation rental licensing or regulations. Examples are the number of days, guest limits, parking, traffic regulations, etc. You also want to assess the market and income potential. What are comparable nightly rates in your area? What occupancy rate is realistic? What are costs like turnover, cleaning, utilities, and management? 4, you want to consider your community and neighborhood impact. Neighbors may oppose STRs due to noise, traffic, parking, those sorts of things. That's often why covenants exist in the first place, to plan to mitigate those sorts of issues. Have an exit strategy. If covenants or rules change, you may need to pivot to long-term rental or owner use. Then 6, engage professionals, real estate agents that are knowledgeable in Montana short-term rental markets. Look to an attorney for covenants, zoning, property manager also can be a great help for you. So to wrap up, short-term rentals are a viable tool in Montana real estate, but you can't assume they're allowed without checking your governing documents and local laws. The Montana Supreme Court has said that when covenants unambiguously prohibit commercial business use, STRs are disallowed. That means, as a homeowner or investor, you need to do your homework. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss any Montana real estate insights from Siphers Family Real Estate. If you're thinking about purchasing a property in Montana for short-term rental, or you're already a homeowner wondering about your subdivision rules, get in touch with us. All the information is in the description down below, and we're happy to help you navigate all of the elements there. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.